Yo, 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 what's up, party people? Welcome to another episode of Thrive and Dive. And I'm here accompanied by the one and only Jason Flaming, aka my brother. How are you doing, Jason?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. I can't complain. It's a beautiful day here in Vero Beach, Florida. And
Nice and toasty.
nice and, yeah, very toasty. If you want a good toast and roast, come to the East Coast here in Florida. Anyway.
All right.
It's been a good day, and I have Jason here on the channel because Jason has had some exciting adventures lately. He's been the man on a mission. He's been traveling the world, going on adventures. Call him, what do we call you? What do you call you? Adventure Man. Yeah, because this guy
Adventure man.
is everywhere. So we are currently on summer break on the time that we're filming this Thrive and Dive episode. And summer's been treating us well. I just finished teaching, and I've started a new role working at my church called Pathway Church. Shout out to Pathway Church. I'm working in the youth and young adult ministry. And Jason's having his final summer before he heads out to college. He's headed out to Asbury University in Kentucky, and he's going to be playing soccer up there and studying. And what are you studying? What do you hope to study? I can't remember.
Sport management.
Sports management. That's fitting because he is a 5-star athlete over here. So, yeah. But anyway, before Jason heads off to college, before he treks off on this new season, I want to hear from Jason because he recently went on a missions trip to the beautiful country of Colombia. Actually, I have no idea if it's beautiful, but he
It's
went
very
to.
nice.
It's very nice. So I just wanted to hear about his mission trip to Colombia. I don't know if you viewers have ever been on a mission trip, but it's a wonderful experience where you typically step out of your country and you go overseas to another country, and you get to kind of experience their culture. You get to minister in a different capacity than you normally would in the states, and you do get to get a little sightseeing as well. And yeah, so this is not your first time going to Colombia, if I remember correctly. You
Yeah.
went last summer. And tell us a little bit about the organization. Tell us about the experience. Who'd you do this through? And yeah, we'll go from there, and I'll ask you some more questions about your mission trip to Colombia.
Yeah. So we went as a team, as a soccer team, out of Chicago. We are called the Eagles. Their home base or headquarters is in Charlotte. Um, so they're just a soccer club, Christian based, and they partner with MAI, which is Missionary Athletes International, where they go overseas and just do different trips. So we met in Chicago, did some training there with coaches there, and then we went and stayed at a place called Costical, which is a ministry partner of MAI, and it pretty much runs exactly like Chicago Eagles and Charlotte Eagles, where it's a soccer club. They run camps, clinics. They have teams throughout the city, and they share the word of God throughout that. So we stayed there for about 10 days, just working with their teams.
In Chicago?
In Colombia.
Oh,
Yeah,
Colombia,
yeah, sorry,
gotcha.
sorry. So I
Yep.
was just telling you overall experience. So yeah, well, we just stayed in Chicago for 2 days before the main trip.
Gotcha.
Flew to Colombia, stayed there, and just did different camps and clinics with the teams there.
Yeah, and shout out to Chicago Eagles. Shout out to Timothy Shaner if you're watching
Yes,
this.
Timmy.
I know you sometimes watch these episodes that we create. You guys are doing a wonderful thing. You've combined the beautiful game of soccer to missions.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Genius. You
Tim-
can't do that with any other sport, right? No, I'm just playing. But soccer
Timothy was the one actually got me involved with this. He came and spoke to the high school team here at Masters 2 years ago.
Oh,
So,
cool. Masters Academy is the high school that I taught at. Jason graduated from. Timothy, who we mentioned, was one of my roommates from Warner University. Shout out to Warner University. We played on Warner University's soccer team together, Timothy and I. And yeah, Jason was just saying that Timothy came and promoted the Chicago Eagles to the Masters Academy soccer team, which got Jason plugged into this missions trip through Colombia. So shout out to Tim. Tim, you're the real goat.
Yes,
So,
Tim.
Yeah, cool. Well, so soccer, from what we're seeing, was the main medium you used for ministry at Columbia. So tell us how that worked. Did you guys just play for fun soccer games? Whoever would play with you, was it organized, or what was that all about?
Yeah, so like I said before, we went as a team with a coach, assistant coach, about 18, 20 guys. So we played some legit organized games with referees and everything, about four of them. And then we'd also run clinics and camps. So they had something called the soccer school, where the kids every other day would either go to school or do the soccer in the morning, and then vice versa. So we would help out with that. They already had plenty of coaches, but we're kind of there just the kids, brighten the kids' day. They love seeing people from out of the country. And then we'd visit each sector of the neighborhoods. So in the we went to the city of Medellin, which is a very second biggest city in Colombia, outside the capital, Bogota. Um, so we'd go to different neighborhoods, or what do they call it, districts, I think is what they call it in Colombia. And they would have different coaches that represented the ministry. So we just go to their fields. Every field was different. It could be sand court, hard court, grass. So that's pretty much what it looked like. So we had some organized games. Outside of that, we would just go to different fields and hang out with the kids, and just play pickup, really. So
Awesome. Super cool. And so, like we mentioned earlier, this is your second time doing this missions trip through this organization, through these methods and things like that. Tell me, what was different about this year than last year? What are some highlights from this year that you didn't experience last year? Or maybe some difficulties from this year that you didn't experience last year?
yeah, so the first two things that come to mind, thing that was different. The first year, it was amazing. It was a really good experience. But the main thing that was different this year was the team. We just clicked really well.
Mm,
We got together really well. About 10 of us were returners around. I don't know if that's the exact
nice.
number. So already half of us were there before, met the coaches before, been in that area. And pretty much everyone who joined the team were someone who had a connection to the 10 of us. There's a couple of guys that didn't have any connections. So we clicked off the bat like really well.
Mm,
So even in Chicago, we were already really tight. So going into Columbia, that kind of already had us prepared for whether it was games or just interacting with each other. There was no conflict there. So that was definitely something that was different. Some challenges that I would say we didn't face the first year was sickness. So this year we had about three, four, five people sick. And when I say sick, they're throwing up. We had a room kind of away from the rest of our beds.
on quarantine?
Yes, where they would sit and sleep and kind of stay away from everyone. So yeah, we had a couple people hit pretty bad with that, and then a couple injuries too. Like right at the end, our last game, someone went up for header, keeper decked him, fractured both sides of his jaw. Shout out Asher.
Oh, that was during your trip?
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
thought you were Jason was telling me the story before went on the air here, and I didn't realize that happened during the
yeah,
missions trip.
yeah.
Wow.
Last game too. I think we were already up 3-0, so it's kind of tragic.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
real. Goodness gracious. Poor
So,
guy. Feel
so
better, brother.
So yeah, that would probably be the main conflict that we didn't experience the first year. Just sickness and people not being up to speed with just like energy and stuff like that. So
Yeah, cool. Now, Jason, we've talked about this on Thrive and Dive way back earlier this year. If you're a faithful viewer, you might remember us talking about this on Thrive and Dive. And Jason, tell us how you use soccer to glorify God, to spread the gospel, and how do you see using soccer in your next season of life at Asbury University as a tool to reach people with the gospel?
yeah, so there's a couple of avenues you can go by this. First of all, in another country, not so much U.S. We're getting there, but just the ball itself, the game itself is breaks barriers, and that's
Hmm.
something huge. You just throw out a ball, and boom, you're friends with the person you're playing with. It's crazy. I'm not even exaggerating. It's
Hmm.
just crazy how that works. So that's one thing that how we use the game. We just go to different places and throw out a ball. We get a connection with them, and then with Chicago Eagles and Costa Cole, their main thing is having devotional times before or after the game, just kind of sharing a testimony or a word, and the best is when we get to do it before the game, because then we get to show them and live out our faith through the game, which is something that's a little unheard of, but it's something about competitiveness. We did a couple of studies on this in our trip, and just how to be competitive on the field,
Hmm.
but still show God's character through it. something that many athletes neglect because they think they're a different person on the field, but you're really the same person. And that's something that I've been trying to focus on, especially this past year, my senior year,
Mm.
being more of like a leader on the team. Is how do I conduct my myself, my actions in the heat of like a competitive game. So that's definitely something that I would say I'd be using sports for,
Mm.
just to kind of show my character, especially to the other opponents that I don't get to influence at all, except for those 90 minutes. So that's I'll say how we've used the game. In America's a little different because, like I said, in other countries you throw out a ball, barriers are broken, boom, you're friends with that person,
Mm.
and then you have a obviously I don't speak Spanish unfortunately, but already though we have a an opening to share God's love with them. Um, we have translators, so that kind of helps. But
Yeah, shout out to the translators. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
so yeah, and
Uh,
then I would like to in my next season of life. Your second part of the question
yeah.
is how at Asbury will I kind of live out the my faith through soccer, and I'll probably go back to just the way I'm competitive.
Mm.
On the team itself, we're all fighting for a position, but still trying to love others at the same time,
Yep.
whether it's an opponent or my teammate, and just showing character on the field. I think that's really huge. Gain respect on the field, and then show off the field. You're the same person.
That's
So
good. Well, two things I really want to highlight, Jason, that you mentioned that were, man, that's good stuff right there. The first one is, Christian character and competitiveness aren't contradictory. I think we sometimes create a false dichotomy where, oh, in order to be a Christian athlete, you got to just be nice all the time and never serious, intense, and competitive. No, being competitive is not a sin. Obviously, you can be over competitive, which leads to a bad impression, bad witness, bad character. But if you have a balanced view of competitiveness, recognizing that it is a thing created by God for us to enjoy and compete in, that's healthy. And secondly, I liked how you talked about specifically as you were ministering into Colombia. And this is true of any culture you go to when you're trying to reach people, or preach the gospel, is find common denominators. Find things that'll break down the walls, like you mentioned. You said we just had to throw a soccer ball out, and boom, walls were broken, connections were made. We couldn't even speak the same language, but we had a bond, right? Soccer is a good bonder because pretty much 99%
it's
of
a
the
world
world
sport.
loves soccer, right? So that's if you want a quick way to engage other cultures, just learn soccer. And that's gonna be a very nice tool in your tool belt if you want to be an overseas missionary. But there's other means by which you connect with people, right? I don't have an example on top of my head because usually soccer works every time. I don't need a secondary method, right? But if you're in a location where basketball, I guess, is the means by which people share passion, then learn basketball. You've got to determine what your culture's like, what's popping, what's hopping in your culture. Unfortunately, soccer is a great tool everywhere but the U.S.
I
We
know.
got some United States people some Americans that like the beautiful game. But for the most part, if I'm trying to witness to my neighbor or to someone I meet in the grocery store talking about Chelsea or some other soccer team, is huh?
Ooh,
What's
Debbie.
yeah, who Debbie? What's that about? So yeah, so whatever culture you engage in, figure out what's hopping, what's popping. Obviously, don't engage in things that are sinful. Thank the Lord, soccer is not sinful. It could become an idol, 100%, but for the most part, it's a neutral thing that we as Christians can engage in without breaking conscience. But find those bridge building things that are going to break down walls and build bridges so you have that relationship. And then you have an opportunity to share the love of Christ with them. If you just go straight up into a community and start preaching the gospel without building a bridge, the receptiveness of those individuals are not going to be as inclined to hear what you have to say because you're just talking to them. But if you're doing life with someone, you're kicking a ball with them, they're more inclined to listen to what you have to say. So that's
Yeah.
great, Jason.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about competitiveness. So, while in Columbia, we did these things called SMT, which is sports ministry training, where
Yeah.
all the coaches would go over different topics, and competitive or competition was one of them. And a couple of cool points I just want to share was the idea that competition is you're not competing against someone, you're competing with someone,
Hmm.
because you're both competing to get better at the game. Now,
Yeah.
certain games, maybe title games, you're competing to win a trophy or something. But majority of times when you compete, you're competing to get better. So that's kind of a way to look at it. It's like, and out of respect for the other opponent, you would want to give 100% because you'd want them to give 100% because they don't give
Ooh.
100%. Okay, 8-0 win, mercy. Wow, you got a lot better. No, you didn't get better.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
interesting.
1-1 game, hard fought, down to the wire, push your body, push your teammates, push to the limits. You learned something. You gotten better.
That's good. So being competitive is actually a demonstration of kindness and love to the opposition. That's good. I never actually thought of it that way. So that's good. Great, Jason. Well, any other stories you want to share about this mission trip? Anything that just like stuck out to you that you think will be interesting for our viewers to know and to see?
Hmm. I don't know. This year wasn't as crazy with the stories, at least.
Okay, no worries. You don't have to make
Yes.
one up. You don't have to exaggerate a small story. Like there
Yeah.
was this one time when there was nothing interesting. There was nothing interesting from that respect. I mean,
Yeah. I
obviously the
mean,
trip was interesting.
we went to one place that was we didn't go the first year. That was amazing. El Caney, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's not really a cool story, but it's kind of just shows you how much God reaches places. So we were in the main city the whole time, but we went to a place called El Caney. It was about an hour and a half away. It was literally in the middle of nowhere, and it
Hmm.
was it was just sick to see. There's a couple houses. All the people were riding on horses, like true cowboys.
Wow.
Cows just walking
Yeehaw.
around. It was just really not run down, but it's just by itself, secluded. And there was a group of kids that would literally come out of like nowhere, like from different houses over the hills and stuff. And we did some coloring with them, and then we played obviously soccer with them.
Hmm.
So I thought that was one of a really cool experience, kind of seeing like they have almost nothing, but yet they come out of nowhere. They do long walks just to get to, well, we would call it school for them. Get to the field, get to where we can play soccer and fellowship, because these kids were walking from very far away because we were in the middle of nowhere, and it was really cool
Wow.
to experience. So
Sweet. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. I got one more question for you before we close. What would you say to someone who's never been on a missions trip before? Would you encourage them to take a missions trip, and why would you encourage them to take a missions trip? For what reasons?
yeah, 100%. If you have an opportunity, take it. Couple reasons. First for yourself, it's like you go see places, go
Yeah.
adventure, go do something you wouldn't do before. Um, and then just seeing other cultures is so much different than U.S.
Hmm.
We even think sometimes going from state to state, people are different, ideas are different. When you go to another country, it's almost like the world's flipped over. It's like, what are they doing? It's
Hmm.
just so cool to see, to try their foods and different things. And also, going more spiritual aspect. Obviously, if you're on a mission trip for like a month or less, you're not going to make too much of an impact to the people living there,
Right.
just
Right.
because you're not having that influence over time. But there's something about just the way it affects you, the way you learn from it, how helping them for the couple weeks you're there impacts you more than it does them.
Hmm.
There's this something about serving someone you don't know, someone you can't even talk to, um, but knowing that you're making an influence for Christ. And I know for us, a huge thing, all the coaches expressed it at Costa Cole. That was just an encouragement seeing us, knowing that people on the other side of the earth love soccer, love
Hmm.
God, and are doing the same thing for kids around them. I know that was the same thing for me, is like seeing how much God works there in Colombia, and I'm like, what, 5 hour flight away from them,
Hmm.
and just knowing that God can work on both sides of the earth. So yeah, if you have a chance to go on a mission trip, I would 100% recommend it. People want it. People, if you need to raise funds, people want to support you
Hmm.
because it's life changing, and people who've gone on it know that.
Right.
Um, Now, if you're there for over time, then you can make a really big impact on the place you are. But like you said, is finding common denominators. It's just such a cool thing to see. Like, oh, I love doing this here in U.S. and Florida and small Vero Beach, Florida, and some person on the other side of the world likes doing the same thing. They
Hmm.
just do it in a different way. And it's just a really cool experience to see.
No, thanks for sharing that. I hope those reasons convince you to consider going on a mission trip. Those are some beautiful reasons, Jason. I know personally, I want to go on a mission trip. It's been a minute since I've been to one. I think the last one I went on when I was like 12, and now I'm 25. So I think I'm overdue for a mission trip. So, yeah. So viewers, if you have an opportunity to go overseas, take that opportunity. It'll be hard. It's not gonna be some walk in the park. I mean, I'm sure Jason can attest to that. It's not comfortable, but I think it's worth it. So yeah, check it out. Well, that's all we have for Thrive and Dive today. Thrive and Dive is a channel where we thrive in life as we dive into deeper conversations. So until next time, my friends, peace out.
Yep.